Believe it or not, I got a pretty surprising email this week from Koei Tecmo. I was expecting a little bit of PR news, but what I got was a review code for a game that came out this week. I wasn't expecting this because I didn't really send them a personal email to ask them for this game, but I'm going to review it regardless. If you're a fan of the Dynasty Warriors series, then you should be interested in this review. Here is my review of the PS Vita and PlayStation TV version of Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires. If you're not familiar with these games, an Empires version of a Dynasty Warriors game ditches the original storyline and puts in an Empire storyline, which is much lighter on story, but more focused on the Empire strategy element. In Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires, you are a freelance officer whom is one of the playable characters in the game, or a custom character, who has to go from being a freelancer with no home to being the ruler of China, unifying all regions of the country under a single banner. Now, as I said, the story is a little bit light here. There are some character developments that you'll see for various playable characters that you interact with, but overall, you don't play an Empires game for story. Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires is an action game with RPG and strategy elements. When you first go through the main menu, you'll have your normal modes like options, but you'll also have the game modes like Empire, Free Mode, Edit Mode, and Online Play. Empire Mode is the most expansive mode we've got here. In Empire, you use one of the 80 or 90 playable characters of the game, or a custom character you've made yourself in Edit Mode, and you work your way up from being a freelance officer with no home to being the ruler of China. To do this, you have to raise your own flag for a territory, expand your territory, and eventually expand your territory to the entire country. Doing this is in the form of actions. Every time you do an action, a month passes and you've got 50 years to take over the country. An action could be a mission or a quest to expand your territory, or you could be doing various support roles for your own citizens, or you can interact with characters such as marrying them and having kids to use in your next playthrough, recruiting new characters, among a few other things. There's a lot of strategy involved in this. You do have to increase your territory, but the enemy regions will also be moving about. You may have a plan for your current turn to go and invade one country. Another country might invade one of your territory, requiring you to redirect your attention and that entire turn to defending that region. So, as you'd expect, there's a lot of strategy in mind. You're not just fighting a war, but you're also supporting citizens. So you kind of have to balance. Now, when you're in free mode, you can basically make your own missions. There are invader missions, defense missions, and raid missions you can go through. And free mode basically is like a quick play mode where you can just choose a custom character and just go at it. Edit mode is a little bit different. Edit mode is character creation. You all know character creation from games like Freedom Wars. But character creation in Dynasty Warriors is a little more extensive. While there are a lot of different physical appearance options, the real depth is in armor and weapons. Every weapon type has a completely different set of combos, different feel, different everything from every other weapon set. So, you might be used to games like Ragnarok Odyssey that had, 6, 7 different weapon types? Dynasty Warriors has 91 different weapon types. That is a huge, overwhelming amount of customization you have to play around with. The last game mode is Online Mode. Online mode multiplayer lets you actually do online or ad hoc multiplayer. When you go online, you can do the invader missions, defender missions, or raid missions. But you can also choose who you want to go through. You can choose whether you want to only play games with Vita owners, or you can turn on crossplay and play across Vita, PS3, and PS4 owners. Actual combat has you running through a 3D arena with various hordes of enemies and commanders fighting after you. While all of the different game modes have their specific types of difficulty and types of objectives, you're basically always going to be running around and fighting hordes of enemies and trying to take over bases and assassinate enemy commanders. Bases work similar to how bases work in the Star Wars Battlefront games. You walk up to a base and you have to clear out enemies to be able to take the base. Now, as far as difficulty is concerned, this isn't as hard as the previous Empires games. So Dynasty Warrior diehard fans aren't going to have an overwhelming challenge, but if you're new to the series or to the genre, you're in for a good challenge. Unless you go through beginner difficulty, there is no way you can go through this game mashing buttons. As far as length goes, I would say a single playthrough Empire mode would take you about 5 or 6 hours, give or take. The only thing I'll say about the controls is that one of the touch-centered controls is very glitchy and it doesn't work half the time. As far as the presentation goes, this is what most of you will be looking for because the Vita version of Dynasty Warriors 8 Extreme Legends had major game-breaking technical problems. Visually, the game doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look great either. All of the character models look fine, but a lot of the environments really had a lot of details taken out of them in the Vita version. It's clear that they could have put a little more detail in here. Performance is good and bad. The good news is performance in Empires is a lot better than the performance in Extreme Legends on the Vita. The bad news is there are still frame rate problems. The frame rate does drop in certain areas or when certain enemies are on the screen, but the frame drops still make the game playable. In Extreme Legends, you had a few situations where it would drop down below 10 frames per second, and that never happens in this game. So the frame drops are annoying, but they're not game breaking. Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires is the first handheld Empires game released in the West, the first being Dynasty Warriors 7 Empires on the PSP only in Japan. This game does have a few things to worry about, like glitchy touch controls, some mild frame rate issues, and a visual presentation not quite up to PlayStation Vita standards. Regardless, this is a very chaotic and strategic Warriors game that just about anybody can get into and have a lot of fun with. Reviews to Go rates Dynasty Warriors 8 Empires a 7 out of 10. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them below, or head to my site at reviewstogo.com.